Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be going over the live letter number 55, I believe it is, LV, yeah. We're going to be doing the usual overview and thoughts video. It was a pretty juicy one, as it was the 5.1 part 2 live letter, so they went into a lot more detail on some stuff. We finally had Ultimate revealed, an official release date, even though we could probably guess it, and we will be using the unofficial translations from over on the Reddit Discord as our backdrop to understand what it was, since it was all in Japanese audio. So thank you to Miyuna and Iluna Minori, who looks like is still actually typing more translations. They do insanely good work. Anytime we've ever had any live translators for the live streams over on Twitch, and then we provide them here on the YouTube channel, those people work really hard. It is insanely hard to do live translations, and they even go back and they fix things up. So big kudos to them, big shout outs to them. And if you're ever looking for where I get my translations, that's where I get them, if not posted from Square Enix directly themselves. Okay, so they did start with the 5.1 trailer. We will be doing a separate video on that altogether. It was hype. And we got the confirmation on the October 29th release date. It's what we've all been suspecting for quite some time now, between the late October hints and the actual day of the live letter itself. We have hard confirmation. October 29th will be 5.1. 2 weeks after that will be Ultimate. And then probably 5 to 6 weeks after 5.1's launch, we'll probably have 5.15. I'll be doing content videos on all that stuff to break it down for anyone who doesn't want to sit through the entire overview and thoughts. So, hyped BGM, they showed off Alexander. They had Thornton in the trailer, which confused a bunch of people. We'll talk about that in the trailer video, but we know that that was for Blue Mage content, not for Ultimate. So for anyone thinking about Thornton, what new content was there, that was Blue Mage related stuff, so keep that in mind. So they did a recap, first off, on all the stuff they announced in the previous live letter. This is very normal for what they do. Level cap increase for Blue Mage, job adjustments, new dungeons, raids, all that stuff. They did elaborate a little bit on the Blue Mage stuff, and again reiterated that the Thornton scene from the trailer was part of the Blue Mage content. No unsyncing and no echo when you're going for Blue Mage achievements. There's a lot of new skills to learn. There's new Masked Carnival, and later we got a peek of what may be a Blue Mage related reward. But we'll take a peek at that when we get to it. They're doing a huge overhaul in the PvP actions. They said they got a lot of feedback about the number of actions and the actions themselves, so we should expect to see a good amount of adjustments to PvP coming in 5.1. There's also going to be a new frontline map. We know there's going to be crafting and gathering updates, which again we covered in the previous live letter, and Ishgard restoration will be added 2 weeks after 5.1 in the same patch that Ultimate is going to be released. Now, they also, of course, had all these smaller updates, still stuff from the previous live letter, new custom delivery client, pet display in the party list, weapon rewards being added to the automatic reward structure for leveling dungeons and Heavensward dungeons and onward, bicolor gemstone cap being doubled, new group post features, and a bunch of new furnishings that can now be used while seated. On top of that, they're adding housing wards for the existing servers that are all there, and the 2 newer servers on the EU data center will have personal housing unlocked for wards 1 to 18. So this is all stuff we've actually just been covering in detail over the past several weeks and months. So there's not really too much to add with all that stuff. Now, I will say I'm going to scroll up a little bit more. I'm going to scroll up now, because if you weren't reading all the text immediately as I put it on the screen, from this point on, I say we're in spoiler territory. They didn't hold back with spoilers in this live letter. So they really didn't in the previous 2 live letters either, but I figure it's worth the warning if you haven't finished Shadowbringers yet. Now might be a time to consider waiting a little bit to learn a little bit more about this patch. So we already knew the Extreme trial was going to be the Hades Extreme for 5.1. That was no surprise to anybody. It's just how the formula works. But it looked like there were some significant changes to the encounter. We saw a lot of familiar stuff from the normal mode, but we saw what looks to be some very, very new stuff, even including a part towards the end where it actually looks like we will have a visual over the Amarot. Now, it's not that surprising to see, but it does look like they're going the extra mile with Hades Extreme in regards to the amount of detail and, I guess, epicness behind the encounter. Difficulty-wise, it's going to be closer to Shinryu than it is to Thornton, since people like to draw comparisons on the EX Primals. And they said the fight is actually going to be so long that instead of rewarding 1 token per kill, they're going to reward 2 tokens per kill. They said that there's going to be a lot of downtime with cutscenes, and considering how cinematic the encounter was the first time around, I guess that's not really that much of a surprise. but you'll only need 5 clears to get a weapon if your weapon itself doesn't actually drop. I'm wondering if that means there will be a checkpoint going into the second half. I have a feeling there will be. It makes sense considering their comments, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It was a super cinematic normal mode fight, very, very epic, and I'm hoping that the EX, as much as we know where EX difficulty generally sits, is something that is just as much a visual epic as the main scenario one was. Now, they did take some extended time to talk about job changes. They still kind of glazed over a lot of the more specific details like potencies and whatnot. I think that's fair. We have patch notes coming probably a week from today for preliminaries, so not too surprising. Ninja was the big thing they wanted to show off, though, and we now have an idea of what the reworked Ninja is going to look like. Now, they say that while you're going to recognize a lot of the skills, it's probably going to feel like a completely different job. I didn't really get that when I was watching them demonstrate it, but maybe when I actually get my hands on it, I'll feel a little bit differently. So ninjutsu right now is currently weaved between your global cooldowns. They're changing it so that ninjutsu itself will be a global cooldown action from now on. It's going to be a two stack charged action, and the potencies, because it'll be on the GCD, are going to be significantly increased. We saw like a 23k Raiton, like a 66k Kasatsu Hyotan equivalent. So this should still be quite satisfying when you land those big hits going into your, especially your Kasatsu ninjutsu. One thing was Kasatsu seemed to kind of generate a charge of ninjutsu, or your mudras in a sense. It didn't really generate a charge. It's just like Kasatsu mudras are different from the charged mudras you normally have for ninjutsu. So it just doesn't consume whatever your current charges are. So that's something to consider with the changes to Kasatsu as well. So they played a bunch of really short videos. Honestly, we should probably break those down in more detail because we don't have them accessible via the translation here. And I'm sure there's going to be some high-profile ninja players who are going to absolutely do breakdowns of what that'll mean for the job as opposed to just what we're actually seeing. So the dot isn't part of a combo. Shadowfang is not part of a combo anymore. It is its own separate button, similar to Sonic Break, I guess. I was kind of surprised to see them go this route. They've made, outside of Sonic Break, they've made a pretty extravagant effort of getting rid of separate dot buttons. But I guess for the sake of being able to line it up with everything else, they probably decided this was the right decision to go with for this, and that they could slot it into your normal rotation a little bit easier if it was its own separate button like this. But that it was I didn't expect that to be the solution, but that's what they ended up going with. So we'll see how that pans out. On top of that, Tenchi Jin had a major adjustment. You no longer need to press the ninjutsu button between each of the mudra casts. So basically what happens when you activate Tenchi Jin, first of all, you still can't move during it. However, each of your mudras will now display the ninjutsu that will cast when you press it. So when you first press Tenchi Jin, all of your separate Tenchi and Jin buttons will all show a Fuma Shuriken, because that's your first mudra. That's the only option you have. Then once you press one of them, the other two will light up with the skill that will activate next. So you're just pressing mudra, mudra, mudra. You don't have to press ninjutsu between each of them. This means Tenchi Jin will probably take about 3 seconds to fully go through, but it should feel a lot quicker than it did before. On top of that, with the actual mudras, they are normally a 0.5 second delay between them. And since they're on the GCD now, with the client side changes they made back in Stormblood, it should feel a lot better to actually use your mudras now, since you don't have to worry about the actual clipping. So Tenchi Jin's going to feel very quick. And so while you will still be rooted in place, you shouldn't be rooted in place for such a long period of time that you can't more properly access the skill. They also played the video a few more times. Some things that were still there, by the way, Armor Crush was there. Hide now generates charges for your ninjutsu, so you can still Hutan outside of combat, and then hide to get your charges back. That's still the way that works. And then on top of that, they had to make some changes to Bunshin, and they made changes to Ninki altogether. So Bunshin now, instead of applying for a set period of time, it applies for the next 5 GCDs. Now that does not include ninjutsu. So basically, while you're using Bunshin, let's say you do 2 GCDs in a Bunshin window, and then your ninjutsu comes off cooldown. You can use your ninjutsu. It won't affect Bunshin. Bunshin will still be all set for 3 more global cooldowns, finish the ninjutsu, and then go back to Bunshin and finish the other 3 GCDs. So it just makes sure that the 2 skills don't, I guess, they cooperate a little bit more than they did before. A lot of it more than they did before. Another big change, I guess I should talk about the Ninki changes. They kind of talk about them a little bit further down in this translation. So Ninki, all the skills that use Ninki now only cost 50 Ninki instead of 80. Yes, you can still save up to 100 Ninki, but they'll only cost 50. So a full gauge is now worth 2 separate ability activations. On top of that, your weapon skills now seem to generate 5, and under Bunshin, they seem to generate 10. That was what I took away from the video. We don't know if that will be the final result of that, but it should make Ninki a little bit easier to calculate and use a little bit, and also saving it up for large burst windows should be something that is a little bit more possible than it was before. The trick attack saw an adjustment as well. Finally, after all these years, it no longer requires being on the rear. You can trick attack from any direction and it will apply. In exchange for that, trick attack is now a 5% debuff for 15 seconds. So overall, I mean, that sounds, I'm pretty sure on paper, that's a nerf in regards to what would have been compared to a properly executed trick attack before. But it also means a 15-second burst window for people to play around instead of a 10-second burst window for people to play around. One of the big things with trick attack is you have to consider how it affects all the other jobs. What can the other jobs do with that extra 5 seconds? What can Ninja do with those extra 5 seconds? How much more can they fit inside of that trick attack window? Those are all going to be big things that a lot of the min-maxers and the people who do theory crafting, they're all going to definitely be diving deep into that. And while we may or may not actually see that adjust much of anything for other jobs, considering it's still on that 60-second time window, it at the very least should lead to smaller numbers that happen over a longer period of time. I'm curious what it'll mean for the grand scheme of things. I'm obviously not going to be a math wizard right now and try to figure it out while I'm doing this broadcast. That being said, I think that's almost everything they needed to showcase. I'm trying to think if I missed anything for Ninja Hide Kasatsu. I don't think there was anything else. They still have their 2 positionals on Aeolian and Armor Crush. They just don't have the trick attack one. I guess that means True North, especially, you'll be using just for things like Aeolian Edge and Armor Crush to maintain potencies on those. And so that makes it, I guess it frees up the use of True North a little bit more. But I don't think I'm missing anything. If I do, I'm sure I'll do a separate video after I go back and rewatch the videos and break those down a little bit more in detail. They did take some time to talk about most of the other jobs and their job changes. Now, Samurai and Summoner were the other 2 jobs that they decided to talk about, that they said would be receiving more significant changes. Now, for first of all, why is the Samurai doing a Gunbreaker pose there? Nobody knows. Second of all, so potencies first. Shoha is having its potency changed to be a flat 400. Now, on the surface, that doesn't sound like much of anything because it's still tied to meditation stacks. However, they're also changing other potencies as well with the job. So just, they assured us Samurai will be stronger. Everything they're doing will lead to a stronger Samurai. So they said that, okay, so here's the actual slide. So meditation status will now stack up to 3 and no longer expire. So this sounds a lot more like chakras on Monk, but only going up to 3. Shoha now requires 3 stacks of meditation. So your goal now is to generate meditation and then use Shoha when you have 3 stacks. Meditate, Iaijutsu, and Tsubama Geishi all grant stacks of meditation now. So you'll be actively generating them even in 100% uptime encounters a little bit more frequently. It also means that if you have a 100% uptime encounter, learning to try and weave meditates in between GCDs to earn an extra stack is worth 133 potency at the very least, considering the 1/3 of the potency of 400. I guess 133 and 333 repeating, of course. So that's going to be something a lot more people are going to want to consider because it is still going to be a potency increase for doing stuff like that. Skill speed will also affect. Now, this is the cooldown of Tsubama Geishi. Now, I've seen other people report that is not 100% accurate. It is not the cooldown. It is the global cooldown of it. Basically, right now, Tsubama Geishi, when you use it, it has a longer GCD than if you were to just use a standard weapon skill because it's not being affected by skill speed. That just makes it slower. It doesn't feel as good. So they're going to bring it in line and make sure that it's properly affected by skill speed. Samurai's, as this news was coming out, I thought it was going to lower it so that you don't have the awkward Tsubama Geishi timings when you want to use it right on a Madare and you don't need to use filler weapon skills. It was brought to my attention that if it was removed off of its current cooldown, it wouldn't meet 60-second burst windows, and that would it would be a lot like Gunbreaker when it first was released before they, or when it was first previewed at the media event, and people said that's going to make it really awkward for timing everything. And then they went back and they changed it and they fixed it so it would make sure it fits in those 60-second burst windows that most people are used to timing things with. So just seems like it's going to be the GCD based on other people's readings into the translations. and that you probably won't have any added issue of timing it with raid buffs and whatnot. So Summoner, they said it's getting a lot of changes. There's 3 in particular they made mention of here. Let me see if they have the finished slide. They do not. So the first big change with Summoner is Eggy Assault. Of course, that is the #1 pain point people have been bringing to my attention for the last however long that Summoner, since Shadowbringers launched, essentially. So now Eggy Assault and Eggy Assault 2 are going to be categorized as spells and will be on the global cooldown. They will have their potencies increased, and they will be instant cast. So they are now an additional movement option. They don't need to be weaved, and they'll have stronger potency, so they should feel better to use as abilities. That should reduce the amount of OGCDs. Yoshida himself specifically said 6 less button presses in the first minute, and then 4 less per minute afterwards. Obviously, the frequency in which you actually receive your Eggy Assaults throughout the fight. So I'm curious how that works out in terms of how Summoner actually feels. It's not the only change that was made, but it's probably the most significant one, considering the clunkiness of that skill prior to patch 5.1. Now, that being said, that's not all they did. Unfortunately, the other aspects aren't mentioned here. Again, the translators, they do things very, very quickly, and it's very tough for them to get everything. So, again, big shout out to them. No one, please, I see people always harassing the translators because things are not all the way there, missing, or a word is not entirely. They go back and they correct it. The fact that we do this right away kind of doesn't do justice to how much work they put in even after the translation is actually done. So, on top of that, they made 2 other changes. One is that Tri-Disaster will no longer apply Ruination, and that Tri-Disaster will now just additionally deal damage. Now, they are going to be changing potencies for the job to make sure that the loss of Ruination doesn't lead to a nerf to the job, so you don't have to worry about that. The final change is one I want a little more clarification on, and I'm wondering if the translations that are being added at the bottom are going to have any further clarification. So the last one is the the enhanced Bane trait will actually cause Miasma and Bio to reset to their full duration on afflicted targets. Now, first of all, that's great. That means that if you place your Tri-Disaster dots on one target and then you Bane it, every target always will have max duration every time you Bane. So that makes it also really good in fights where you're trying to transition dots from one target to the next. Have them being full duration automatically is something that is a great quality of life. The big thing that I'm not 100% sure on, based on what I've read, is if that will apply to the target you're actually hitting with Bane. Bane, as of right now, does not do anything to the target you're Baning off of. So I don't think it would be for extending the duration on the existing target. I'm pretty sure it's just for getting a max duration spread on everything else. So either way, those are all very welcome changes on top of potency changes we haven't seen yet. It sounds like summoners should be happier, but no Eggy Glamour. So sorry, moving on. Anyway, Bard is getting a change as well. Now, all the ranged physical are getting potency increases. They confirm that Machinist and Dancer will be getting buffs as well. Bards, however, will have their Stormblood song effects being returning. The buff for having their songs active, that will be returning in 5.1 as well. Now, in Stormblood, it was a 2% crit buff for all the party members around the Bard whenever they were singing. They said this time the buff will be weaker. So I don't know if that means 1% crit or it means like 2% determination or just something else. We don't know exactly what that actually means. But that being said, they wanted to add a little bit more synergy to the job. So they said this is the change that they said they were scared of. For the last 2 live letters, they've been saying, we're trying something out for Bard, and we're really afraid of it, but we're going to give it a shot, and we just have to make sure we don't do it incorrectly, or it's going to be a problem. They pretty actively recognize that if Bard gets this, they might have too much synergy with everyone else, but they also want to bring that Bard feel back to the job. And it was the #1 most requested thing that Bards had from the previous iteration. They also changed the sound effect for Apex Arrow. They told us that they were doing that, so it doesn't sound like pitch perfect at the same time. Now they moved on to tanks. Now they didn't give us any specifics on the individual tanks. Instead, they just told us that both Reprisal and the 30% reduction, damage reduction cooldowns are both going to be receiving buffs. Reprisal is going to be AoE, and the duration will increase. And I was pretty surprised to see that. That was... I didn't expect to see that big of a reprisal buff, nor did I think it was super necessary, unless they plan on adding more ads. I guess in dungeons, that's better. Aloha, you're in the video now. Now you're a part of this. Your food's right there. Anyway, also the the 30% damage reduction cooldowns like Sentinel and Vengeance, their duration's being increased to 15 seconds. That surprised me. I don't know if that's an indication of changes coming to the way that damage is dealt to tanks, unless they need these durations more so. I have a feeling they're just doing it, which I don't know how I feel about that. I need to see it in action. It's going to probably feel better, but is it necessary? That's a whole nother story. Monk adjustments. A lot of people have been talking about Monk. You guys know I've been really outspoken about Monk. I'm not a big fan of a Knotman. I'm not a big fan of the damage it does compared to the other melees in terms of that. It does a lot. It makes it really hard for a job like Samurai to shine. So Monk, of course, had to get some adjustments. It was unavoidable. So what are they doing? They're going to... Mantra is too strong, so they're going to slightly nerf it. Okay, so moving on to Dragoon. They're going to be easier to use. They don't elaborate any more on that. They weren't so hard to use before. So I'm going to assume this has something to do with positionals or jumps or something. Listen, it's leaps and... Dragoon's made some progress over the years. I don't know how much they really need this, but it's not the first time they've said that. I remember them saying that back in Stormblood. We were like, what are they going to do? And then they did stuff and we were like, oh, that makes sense. So that's it. Red Mage is going to be getting potency buffs as well. Machinist, Dancer, potency buffs as well. Red Mage is also going to be getting something that specifically helps their opener. Acceleration is now going to have 3 stacks, so they're able to generate the proper amount of mana in their opener so that their timing is better with the party buffs and whatnot. Now, in exchange, Acceleration is going to have its recast time increased, but their goal was to mostly try to make the Red Mage opener a little bit more in sync with everybody else's. After that, Red Mage kind of just falls into a flow anyway, so it shouldn't be too bad for them from that point on, but they're overall going to be getting a damage buff in this patch. So hopefully that works out well. Black Mage, there's nothing except one thing. They said that that triple cast is going to have a better display for the remaining stacks it has left. Okay, a little bit more information, not much. Black Mage is in a great spot right now. So, but why? No, not much else to do. Healers, we know Astro's getting a bunch of adjustments. Asylum's range, I'm assuming its radius on White Mage is going to be increased. It makes sense. Sacred Soil has a bigger radius than Asylum and provides damage reduction and a regen. So it doesn't really make sense for Asylum to be a couple of yalms smaller radius. It just doesn't make sense. So they're probably making it the same size as Sacred Soil. As for Astrologian, Minor Arcana is kind of getting the Tenshijin Ninjutsu treatment, I guess. So basically, you don't have to stock cards away with Minor Arcana anymore. Just when you have a card drawn, if you activate Minor Arcana, it will play the Lord or the Lady immediately, depending on the qualifying card. So if you pull a Balance right now, it would be a Lord. It would just, the icon would just change to the Lord. You wouldn't have to stock it away. So just eliminates a button press for using Minor Arcanas. They also said it would be, quote, friendlier on MP. They didn't go into too much detail. That sounds like just outright MP nerfs to certain skills to me, as opposed to adding more MP generation to the job, something like a Thin Air or an Asylum or something. I've seen people suggest that they should make it so when you play a card, you get like 100 or 200 mana back. And I think that would be cool. I think that'd be a nice little thing to have to encourage smarter, quicker card gameplay, but there's no indication it's going to be anything like that. It just sounds like MP nerfs to me, but we don't know. Friendlier on MP is too general of a term. Also, Collective Unconscious changes, and this is mostly for Nocturnal. They didn't go into too much detail here, but I think there's an additional translation for it a little bit further down, so I'll have to get down to that. I don't remember, but Collective Unconscious should be better for Nocturnal. They said they were going to be buffing Nocturnal. Here you go. They're buffing Nocturnal. Now they're almost done with the first half of the live letter. Crafting and Gathering revamp. They just wanted to quickly go over this again. We already went over most of this stuff. I guess the highlights of it in the last live letter. Less actions. Certain actions being condensed. But there was a lot of actions that were gone when he swapped over to Crafting and Gathering. So the insane amount of redundant abilities is going to be turned down an immense amount. On top of that, they showed off stuff like the crafting trees, which again is stuff we saw in the last live letter. Everything will have a sub command, so you can actually see through those trees. And yeah, and then they also showed like the gathering log. It'll show you the location of the item on a map. So there's that as well. And then a gathering log. Yeah, so here's where they comment. There's a lot of grayed out skills. Bayergot's blessing got bumped to 100% as one of the examples of the changes they made. He specifically, and I really like this quote. We believe there are a lot of players that have leveled and geared their crafters and gatherers, but have no idea what they're doing. Somebody please give me a macro, they'll say. Yeah, that's pretty much, I mean, that's what it's become. You literally Google the macro and you do it. He says that's okay to like have a solution and as a community to share the best way to go about doing something, but that doesn't mean they can't make it something players don't need to do that to understand in game. So he's just saying that he simplified it so people might be able to actually enjoy and understand it without going out of their way in some sort of self-discovery, I suppose, for the job, without being bogged down by 30 skills that you'll probably never touch and then macroing the like 9 to 10 that you actually do use. 5.1 will have some adjustments, and there will be more in 5.2. Working on high difficulty crafting recipes as well. They've made mention of this for Ishgard many times. Desynth, we know there's changes coming. No more levels, 100%. They didn't really elaborate any more on it, though. Or if they did, then we'll have to catch the finished translations later. There might be more information. Again, there's a lot of stuff here. They just want to make it so desynth can be used to obtain items more consistently instead of just handing them over to the Grant Company all the time. And there might even be rare items you can sell. To me, that's music to my ears because desynth hasn't had really rare items in a long time. I have a feeling they won't actually be making any adjustments to what items are available. I don't think they'll open up any rarer items than we already have. That's just me being a little pessimistic, but it's the reality. I've made a lot of money off desynth, and I don't know how long that'll last. So that was the first half. They then showed a bunch of videos of places they've been attending for conventions and different media events over the last several months, 5 different events altogether. And then they started the second half. They did a little Alienware advertisement. By the way, if you would like to get get a new headset, keyboard, maybe a new mouse, just type !SteelSeries in the Twitch chat or check the description of the video on YouTube to get a 10% discount code on SteelSeries swag. #ad. Let's continue with the live letter. Moving on, Ishgard was the next thing they talked about, and it's a lot of what we expected for the initial iteration. Crafters and gatherers working together to rebuild Ishgard. We're specifically rebuilding the firmament. There's going to be stuff like item deliveries there, and new features in order to help rebuild it will be added in the future. Obviously, each different world has their own set of progress, and so if you visit a world, they might not be as developed, or they might be more developed than your Ishgard currently is. Again, that'll be releasing 2 weeks after 5.1 is released, so, early November. And this is a picture. So I can pull 2 things away from this picture of the firmament. 1, holy hell, that got destroyed. 2, that is 100% a housing ward. You will not convince me that does not one day turn into a housing ward. And that's been the speculation. When Ishgard Restoration was first teased, they specifically stated, we need to rebuild Ishgard because, it's destroyed and there's nothing else we can do with it. Maybe one day we'd want to live there or something. They said it very it's a little bit of, what's the word for it? Whatever. They said it in a way, but that is 100% a housing ward. You can even see the way the building outlines are done. Those look like you can't convince me the firmament won't one day become a ward. Those literally are all the squares that I'm used to seeing the plots in. So I would like to say a lot of people keep thinking Ishgard housing is going to happen soon. Soon is relative. I am personally not expecting it until past 6.0. Not even in 6.0. I think 6.1. But that's just my prediction. I just don't think it'll be soon. But that's 100% a fucking housing ward. Excuse my language. Let's see. So then it just shows, some of the, the areas and the NPCs and the rebuilding. There's going to be a Sky Builders board, which will have different goals for you to currently work on as a server in order to actually rebuild it. And then once you fulfill enough things, this black progress bar at the top, once it's actually filled, there's going to be almost like a crafting fate, in a sense, that will pop up in Ishgard. And what will happen with that is once the crafting fate pops up, you'll need to get as many crafters to come in there and start helping as quickly as possible, because the fate can fail, but it doesn't fail based on the skill of the players. It fails based on not having enough bodies. So getting people to quickly get to one of those works, one of those concerted works as they're called, is very important. So make sure to call that out and get the information out as quickly as possible whenever it actually fills. Let's see. You can also craft collectibles, hand them in. They specifically show that in this menu. It's worth mentioning that there seems to be an experience tab somewhere. There's some new items. They're covering up some spoiler-related stuff. And they did say we'd be able to level, but if you look under the Nutkin's nuts, you can see an experience point, what looks to be an experience point symbol. They did say you'd be able to level with Ishgard Restoration last patch, or last live letter, I'm sorry. And so that's not really much of a surprise, but seeing that there appears to be further confirmation of that. Yes, but the Nutkins are hiding something from us there, probably something to do with the actual progress bar, I'd imagine. And then this is the concerted works, where you see all the crafters walking up and just slamming their hammer into a plank, because that's how we fix things. Yeah, if you fail, it's not about skill. They said the works itself, once people are there, won't take too long to complete. And then, of course, from handing in collectibles, you receive rewards, which you can trade in for different items. They're going to be introducing a scratch game in 5.2, which will have some additional rewards in it. It can be traded in for hairstyles or other items as well. So different ways to actually feel like you're part of Ishgard, in a sense. We know that they've said things like having seasonal events once Ishgard is rebuilt. We, of course, are suspecting housing to eventually be a thing there once it's rebuilt, especially with the way that the firmament actually looks. And so they're looking to, I guess, give us more of a reason to be there than we had in Doma. Like Doma, we basically finished building it, and we got a little bit of story. And then unless we wanted to vendor trash, it was kind of just gone. They seem to be wanting to keep a prolonged use for Ishgard here, more so than the Doman Enclave, which I think is the smart decision to go with. Let's see, what else do we have? They showed the hairstyle. They also showed a mount, which I'm assuming will be part of Ishgard Restoration as well, considering the timing of revealing that slide here. And yes, it is flying. Now, they also showed off some new gear. You can see the tank top here. It's kind of hard to see because this is the best image they could give for us, apparently, with the tank top and the working clothes and whatnot. So a few different glam options, mounts. I'm assuming other things will pop up there as well, but they are looking to, make sure there are plenty of reasons for people individually to want to help with the restoration of Ishgard. There will also be a ranking system added in 5.2. It's going to be very similar to our Palace of the Dead in Heaven on high leaderboards, and we know that the ranking system will be seasonal with high tier rewards given out to those who contribute the most in any given season. In 5.2, they'll also be allowing you to contribute via gathered collectibles. Currently, only crafting collectibles can be handed in 5.1, and in the future, you can add gather stuff to that as well. The scratch-off tickets, they already mentioned for 5.2 as well, and diadem improvements. Now, I had suspected that diadem would become a gathering exclusive zone, and they have confirmed that is the idea. Diadem will come back as the gathering island that is currently in development. We will add features to, and then this was just a random comment that got thrown in at a very interesting time. But yeah, so they're sending you to Diadem to gather items to help rebuild Ishgard. It is not going to be our next exploration zone, is what I'm trying to make it sound like. Now, they will be adding features to housing to make it more appealing to use for RP. That was a random comment that was thrown in, but it's kind of weird how they transition from Ishgard into housing, right? Yeah. They showed off just a few new furnishings. Looks like stalls outside, like bazaar style stalls for RP purposes, and some new interior decorations. There's partitions, not walls, that allow you to break off different rooms. And then a lot of people, myself included, I didn't know to expect this. We all thought that this was, I should get a better picture. We all thought that this was the Nier gear. That's just, I didn't think I know it's nothing from Nier Automata, but like it looks so robot-y and androidy. A lot of people thought that. It's actually the winner of the DPS, the DPS designer for the gear contest from about a year ago. I didn't remember that, and I'm glad people were there to remind me, because that's dope. That is dope. We don't know where it's going to come from yet, though. Most people suspect it's a dungeon drop because they've done that with the winners in the past. But I don't think they specifically stated where we would be getting it, just that the design winner would finally be being implemented in 5.1. We also get to see RoboCop, as I'll get it, Rogadin, R-O-E, RoboCop, Robogadin, whatever you prefer. We get that as well. Either way, I think those look cool. I think those look awesome. So Edgelord happy, coming in hot. Can't die, right? Nope. So they did make gear for every role with the design winner for the melee DPS winner, but yep, there's going to be something for a little bit of everyone, and I think it looks cool. I'm really impressed. I don't know who won that, because I don't pay attention to the gear design winners until somebody points out to me that they're being added to the game. That's dope. That person, you're awesome. I like you. All right. I just want you to know that. Okay. They also showed off the new gate that is going to be coming to the Gold Saucer, which I thought was hilarious now that we've actually seen it. The Slice is Right. It's basically a dodge the AoE gate where you are going up against Yojimbo and Daigoro and trying to stay on the platform for as long as possible. They're going to be forcing it to pop up a lot more often. Well, that's just them saying they're going to force it to pop for this description, but I'd assume it will fall into a pretty set rotation with the way that they've changed things for gates. They've made them like they made certain the more recent ones more frequent to appear. I'm assuming they'll do that with this as well. And it was great. It was a lot of him slicing pillars in different ways. He can slice one in half and it falls both ways. He can slice them into just multiple pieces and they fall under an AoE, like directly under them. You can slice them so that they fall directly in one direction, like Hushmal towers, for example. And then there are also little intermissions in between each of the waves. Between the first wave and the second wave, Daigoro jumps around trying to collect the MGP that Yojimbo has dropped on the ground. If Daigoro hits you while you try to pick up the MGP, he's going to knock you off. So you can choose to try and pick it up for a bonus at the end, or you can choose to just ignore him and keep moving on so you can earn more from just staying on the platform. The second bonus stage actually showcased a cup game where you have 3 cups. You hide a good thing under one, a bad thing under another, and nothing under the third one. If you've ever played Super Mario RPG and you've ever gotten the stupid bad one on the EXP rolls or the coin rolls, you know exactly how this works. If you get the one that has the MGP under it, you double your MGP for the actual for the gate. If you get nothing, you just don't get knocked off. If you land on Daigoro, however, then he's going to send you off the side of the platform and you're out. So these bonus stages are quite interesting, and it was hilarious watching Foxconn react to all of that. So and then the final wave is just more difficult AoEs. There's not another bonus stage after that. So the final wave is just stronger AoEs. Yoshi P fell off and he was furious. So, but he lost and he still got 6k MGP because he got the double up. So he got 3k for failing without picking up any of the MGP from the first bonus stage, and then he also doubled it by landing on the pile in the second bonus stage. So there's that. They also showed off the Pixie Beast Tribe quest, which literally has a theme park in it. I guess we're going to help the Pixies build a theme park for them to entertain themselves. And that once you've actually beaten the Pixie quests, this will be an area that you can spend time in with your friends. There's slides, there's a roller coaster that didn't seem to work, to be honest. There's swing sets that also didn't seem to work, to be honest. I don't know if they're going to make this stuff work eventually, but legitimately it's like a children's playground in a sense, inside of a zone. So a lot of work clearly went in. It's really awkward having no like shrubbery or anything, considering they turn people into shrubbery. They also used this opportunity to showcase some new emotes. They showcased a lean emote, which you don't have to use to lean against a wall. You can lean against somebody else's back, or you can just lean into nothing and pretend you're a mime. So that was this one right here, the lean emote against the giant Spriggan cookie with the candy cane and lollipop in the back. And then they also showed off another like kind of like a shuffle emote where they like fell over, but it looked more, I didn't recognize it. Maybe it is one that's already there, but I didn't recognize it. They also went through some PvP updates. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but they're removing 24-player battles from Frontlines. Now, for those who don't queue in very often, when you do Frontlines, if there's not a lot of people queuing, they'll do 24-player matches where it's 8v8v8. Those are going to be removed. The normal version of Frontline is 24v24v24. That is going to be the only size Frontline match that you can actually get from this point on. They're also adding more notifications to some of the other Frontlines maps for Icebound Tomeliths, drones. Recast time for return has been removed, so you can go back to base as often as possible. Waiting time to return to battle after dying is now set at 5 seconds. It no longer scales with the number of times you've died. But they're also limiting the party size you can queue in with. You can no longer queue in with any more than 4 players at a time. So no 8-man pre-mades, at least not in the traditional sense. Having done some PvP pre-mades in the past, I know that the way people do pre-mades in the Feast, and I'm sorry, in Frontlines is not at all like the way that you think that this will help. People are just going to queue it all in at the same time. That's how we did it back in Stormblood or back in Heaven's Word for Seal Rock. We just had a bunch of people queuing at the same time. So we'll see how it ends up working. But either way, those are some good changes to Frontlines. They're also making changes to Battle High. They kind of talked about this a little bit in the past. Battle High is going to have its own separate gauge for every separate player. The gauge increases with each KO or assist, and the gauge is reduced by half when incapacitated. For those who don't normally PvP, Battle High just gives you damage dealt and healing potency increases as you get more Battle High. But now it's going to progress in 5 stages. And the players that have Battle High and they have it at a specific stage are going to have this icon that's going to be visible. So you can really easily identify high priority targets in PvP more properly. Now, tactical rating bonus for defeating players affected by Battle High has been removed. So you're no longer going to gain a massive bonus in regards to like a comeback bonus for getting a shutdown. Instead, you're just literally shutting down somebody's Battle High and trying to get it down lower so they don't contribute as much. They also added a new game mode for Frontlines. We knew about this last month, the Ansal Hakar, also known as the Danshig Nadam, which is very similar to the Nadam we did as part of the Stormblood main scenario. And it's basically like Seal Rock with a few changes. For one, you are still going to be fighting over points. There's rank B, rank A, and rank S points. However, when you actually claim a point, it can no longer be stolen from you. So you don't need to sit at the point in order to maintain your power over it. Your goal is to issue the initial capture, and then it will contribute towards your ranking, and then you're supposed to go elsewhere on the map and try and exercise your power elsewhere. So I guess the idea is to make it so when you claim a point, you don't have to sit on it, and if nobody comes to fight you, you end up with these bloodless PvP matches, which definitely with the original Seal Rock, it happened more on 8v8v8, but it wasn't, even on 24v24v24, sometimes it just didn't encourage people to actually go out and fight unless somebody actually felt like going for a spot that they felt was retrievable. I don't know that I still don't know that I like it that much, because it does make what position it spawns on the map a little bit more, I guess, weighty. If it spawns really close to one team's start point, more so than anyone else's, and they can get to it first with no contest, it kind of creates a bit of a negative dynamic there. So I want to see how it actually ends up being balanced, because people are going to be over the map fighting for objectives more often. But I do worry about that one specific aspect of the balance, because Seal Rock is my favorite mode, and I want to enjoy this mode as well. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going to be changed. They said that their in-house said they loved it a lot. They didn't even really have much feedback to provide. They just wanted to play it a bunch more. So I hope that I enjoy it as much. That new PvP map and the changes will be added. I guess that specifically that new map will be added in 5.15 alongside the Blue Mage changes that are coming. They went over New Game Plus again. There isn't really too much to say here. It's as they've described. They just gave us a live demo of it. Only Heaven's Word, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers in there now. They're adding job quests. They're adding other side quests in the future. And A Realm Reborn, when it gets reworked, will be available there in patch 5.3. They showcase, resetting to Stormblood and going to a specific chapter and going to accept, right before the Nadam quest actually began. Once you start at New Game Plus, the menu indicator will become invisible. And if you click it again, you can leave New Game Plus at any point. That way you can go back to your normal everyday dealings with everything already unlocked. They also took this time to showcase a couple of new mounts, one of which was a Marlboro mount. Now, those of you who are watching the live stream noticed that Blue Mage music was playing in the back of the Marlboro being used. So odds are this comes from a Blue Mage achievement. It could be the Masked Carnival. It could be from learning all the spells. It could be from something in the Blue Mage log. For all we know, it could be for beating Extreme Primals with all 8 Blue Mages unsync no echo. We don't know, but we're suspecting it's probably Blue Mage related. Bad Breath is a very popular Blue Mage spell as well, so it's not too much of a surprise. And the mount itself has a Bad Breath emote. So again, not really surprised, but I need it. They also showed off the Porksy, which will no doubt be the Pixie Beast Tribe Quest mount. Small, hilarious, and has a suck emote. I don't know why, but it does. It is a suck emote. And then they just showed off the Marlboro. They showed off New Game Plus a little bit more. NPC dialogue gets reverted during New Game Plus, so you can read the old dialogue. On top of that, they added difficulties to the actual New Game Plus instances. You can choose to do them on just the normal difficulty, which is the way you did them before. If you just want to blow through these because they take too long, you can choose to set it to easy or very easy. They're already pretty easy, so I don't see much of a reason to do that. It seems like easy and very easy just give you different levels of echo. So whatever, it's an option for people who want to get through the quests and the cutscenes faster and aren't really in it for the solo instances like a lot of people I know actually are. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh yeah, they went back to talk about the instance playground. In the end, you'll be able to enter it with other people. Okay, yeah, we knew that. They quickly showed off some of the glamour dresser changes. We went over this in a blog post on YouTube a couple weeks ago. Something that they want to do in a future patch, this isn't in 5.1, is actually they want to add a place for you to one central place to spend old tombstones, so specifically poetics. Right now, if you want to use them, you can go to Mordona or Idleshire or Ralgers, depending on what item you want. They're going to try to centralize all that. Where, they didn't say yet, and when that happens, we don't know, but it'll happen at some point. Then they went into the copied factory for the Nier 24-man raid. They did not show us gear, but they said specifically, and I'm going to quote this by scrolling down in the unofficial translation. Let's see, where is it? Nope, that's not it. Where is that quote? Was it right here? We want you to be surprised at this, so we didn't talk about it a lot yet. I'm sorry, but I can't tell you anything about rewards either. All I can say is the things you are looking for will be obtainable. To me, that obviously reads obviously all the protagonists from Nier Automata and all their armor will probably be the baseline for the copied factory. What we see in the future ones then makes me really curious, but I expect a lot of 2Bs to be popping up in 5.1. Let me just put it that way. As for weapons, they've not done weapons in the past. They kind of commented on weapons in the previous live letter, but they said that there's not really a lot of weapon choices for all the jobs. I think they said they hadn't ruled out doing weapons in the future, but that it would stick to the traditional 24-man format for this. We're gonna have to wait and see how that pans out, but who knows, maybe they did have a solution and they were just kind of sending us on a wild goose chase for that one. Obviously everyone wants the katana, but we don't know if we're actually going to get any of that stuff in this very first raid tier. Then they just walked around a little bit. You could hear a woman on a loudspeaker talking. I mean, I say woman, but it's an android essentially speaking over the loudspeaker of the factory itself. Most stuff we just see from the trailers. We see a couple of dwarfs from a quest line over in Tamra, the quest line that actually teased the Nier Automata raid being somewhere located in Calusia. So if you haven't done all the quests over there, be sure to head over to Tamra and go through some of the quests that are there. There's an emote waiting for you as well. Lally-ho. They recreated the data with all 14 related stuff, so it doesn't look too out of place. It's just, very clearly themed off of, Nier Automata. And then for our final little bit here, our new ultimate, the Epic of Alexander. They had already announced this earlier. It was in the trailer. It was in the initial announcements when they were going through the previously announced content. The Epic of Alexander, I'm going to be posting a separate video because I have a reaction to their, not reveal of Alexander per se, but they watched the opening cutscene of it. And yeah, I had a reaction. So we've been predicting it was Alexander Ultimate for a long time. It seemed like the most obvious next choice, especially after Coil being the first ultimate. It seemed like next expansion just used the next 8-man raid as an ultimate. The comment that scares me is we put in everything. Now, I'm going to put this out there, okay? So this image has Alexander in his wing form. It has Brute Justice, and it has Cruise Chaser. Brute Justice is already made up of 4 bosses from A6 Savage, so we can include them in there. We can presume that we'll have to fight them individually as well. Obviously, there's the additional bot from A8 itself, but that thing is kind of core to Brute Justice and is part of that encounter altogether. Cruise Chaser is there. That seemed like an obvious one, and Alexander is there. But they are in the Living Liquid arena right now, and when they introed the cutscene, the first boss you actually encounter is Living Liquid. So when they say they put in everything, I have a feeling Faust, Hummel Faust, Faust Z, Living Liquid, Mr. Gorilla Man transformation guy, I'm sure All Thoughts is present in here somewhere. Maybe not Scrapman, I kind of don't care about him. Please no Gobwalkers, I don't want any Gobwalkers. I don't mind if Oppressor pops up. We got Lame Bricks making his like 4th appearance of all time. So we got this. Dude, I'm scared. We put in everything they said. And then Pepsi Man. Yep, that's all anyone needed to see was Mr. Pepsi Man. Wee. We all had PTSD when we saw that one. He even said maybe some of you have nightmares now. They're working on the last number adjustments. Rewards are weapons, just like the other ultimates. They are very shiny, but in a different way. It's hard to explain. There will, of course, be a title. It'll probably be the something legend. Most people are guessing a timeless legend or an epic legend. One of the two would make the most sense to me. As for the weapons, one interesting note. Back in 4.1, when we already knew Unending Coil of Bahamut was being added in 4.11. They added final coil weapons for Red Mage and Samurai in that patch. I wouldn't be surprised to see Alexander, specifically A12 weapons, appear for Gunbreaker and Dancer for the level 60 equivalent. It would be in line with what they did last time. So if you have some pages tucked away, you might want to hold on to those. If you don't, might want to consider getting them. But you could also just wait to see if they do actually do that, or if they just try to pull another model from those weapons. Either way, dopeness incoming. He says, I hope there's a team that clears. I have a feeling a team will clear. He's like, I think this one will be pretty challenging. He's like, what's the exact quote? I think it was, let's see, even if you're not going to challenge Ultimate, yada, yada, yada. Let's see. I think it's hard this time. I don't know if he's talking about the encounter or everyone watching it at that point. But that was the end of the second half of the live letter. They then did announcements. They're going to be doing a patch note reading on October 29th. They do that for every patch. They're going to be at the Kitakyusha Pop Culture Festival, which is going to be taking place on November 30th through December 1st. 14 was nominated for a Golden Joystick Award, and the voting ends Thursday, October 24th for Best Game Expansion and PlayStation Game of the Year, specifically for Shadowbringers. So if you're someone who likes to vote on the Golden Joysticks, consider that as well. PlayStation Game Music, they were nominated for PlayStation Game Music Grand Prize Award 2019. Voting ends for October 31st for that as well. The listening counts on Spotify count towards nominations. So if you enjoy the 14 music and you want to listen to it through Spotify, that actually counts towards their nominations. So that's pretty crazy. And then Eorzean Symphony is going to be releasing its orchestral album Volume 2 on Wednesday, December 11th. And the first run gets an orchestrion roll as well. First run edition says orchestrion roll. It doesn't say anything else. It just says orchestrion roll. Recorded with 3 sound options: stereo, 5.0 Nier, and 5.0 far. Also features footage from the most recent Eorzean Symphony and the orchestra concert in Yokohama. They also showed off some merchandise for the 6th time. I think we've seen this shirt, the eldest and most powerful of all primals, the what's it called? The Heidelin Didn't Skip Leg Day shirt. That's going to be on sale Saturday, November 30th, but NA and EU sales are TBD. That's our only Japan sales for the time being. They showed off the Beaver stuffed minion. That's also going to be available in Japan on November 30th, NA EU TBD. They also showcased these, I guess acrylic stands. Yeah, these are acrylic stands. Once again, NAEU TBD, these will be available on November 30th for Japan. And then they also have pin badges for crafters and gatherers. Guess what? Those will be available November 30th, NAEU TBD, as they all are. They're also going to be giving us a late 14-hour broadcast. So normally we get the 14-hour broadcast for the anniversary, which would have happened on August 27th. They didn't do that this year. They were traveling to like 3 different conventions back to back to back. So instead, they're doing the 14-hour broadcast on December 14th, and there will be a live letter there. It probably will not have much to do with 5.2, because I think 5.15 will be out probably around the same time as this, so it's a little too early for a 5.2 live letter. But that's set for Saturday, December 14th. That's my mom's birthday. Hey, Mom, here's your birthday gift. 14 hours of the game I play every day. She'll be like, you're the only gift I need, son. And I'll be like, that's a lie, Mom. I know it is. I know it's a lie. I know it is. Okay, and that was the end of the live letter. Quite a juicy one. Quite a few things that people are going to be chomping at until we get our hands on them in the next week and a half or so. Let me know what you thought in the YouTube comments section. Twitch has been letting me know the whole time. I've been glancing over at that this entire time. And we still have some other videos to record. We got to break down the trailer, and I got to post my reaction to Pepsi Man being revealed and Aloha, who is very uninterested in all of it, getting to be a part of that entire decision. So anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this recording number 1. Twitch, I will no longer ignore you until I go to do recording number 2. YouTube, thank you again for watching, and I will see all of you in the next video. Until then, take care.